variety than you can imagine. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. This is Relaks with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is going on in the UK. There's a lot of talks. There is a lot of conversation. There is a lot to be discussed. And yeah, if you guys are just tuning in, this is me, Nick, keeping you company on Real Talk. So yeah, that's right. If you have any dedications or shout outs or you want to be a part of the show, all you got to do is simple. Hit me up on those numbers 07852473473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always feel free to come this way and hit me up. I mean, hey, also don't forget you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And yeah, we're talking about a lot of the things that is going on right now in the UK. And there's a lot of drama. There is a lot of drama going on in the Parliament. Yeah, we'll be getting into all of that and a whole lot more, with issues coming up with Matt Hancock and all of those situations. But right now, though, right now is the green list. Yeah, the green list it's been updated recently, and there has been talk on a lot of these travel industry CEOs and company owners are not quite happy with it. So yeah, the government, the government's expansion of the UK's green list does not go so far enough is what industry leaders have been warning. And they've been talking about this and they have been discussing about this particular matter and they're not quite happy about it. So arrivals from these 16 places, including Spain's Balearic Islands, will not have to quarantine on Wednesday onwards. So Transport Secretary Grant Shapps also said the government plans to drop quarantine for fully vaccinated people. I mean, this is something that also Matt Hancock spoke about, and we will be definitely getting back on him. But at the moment, yeah, they were talking about all these things, and the government said they plan to drop all these quarantine for fully vaccinated people. So if you had a vaccine, if you had double doses, if you had both of the doses, well, that's a good time. And it shows, this is, you can actually travel. You don't have to quarantine. So, looking at all these things, others in the industry, including Thomas Cook, were positive with the company describing the announcements as a good first step that opened up more holiday options for customers. So looking at all of this, also, a lot of these airline companies, and one of them is EasyJet's Holidays. The chief executive, Gary Wilson, said there had been a huge surge in people booking holidays to countries that have been placed on the green list. So right now, a lot of these people who are booking these holidays, they are people who've gotten both jabs, is what they're saying. However, they've been questioning, why more destinations such as the Canary Islands and the Greek islands were not added to the list. And he went on to criticize, the Gary Wilson, the chief executive of the EasyJet Holidays, went on to criticize and said that what he described as the delay to opening up travel to double vaccinated people, saying the UK was falling behind Europe. So they're saying, okay, the effort and the energy that we're putting in is not quite enough in comparison to our European counterparts. So the Transport Secretary said several institutes still needed to be resolved before the system could be introduced. And yeah, looking at all these things, like I said, this is also being discussed at the moment. And yeah, they spoke about all these things, and several issues needed to be resolved before the system could be introduced, including whether children should be given the vaccine and how people from outside the UK could prove their vaccination status. So if you're outside of the UK, if you want to show proof, well, there has been issues with regards to this, and there has been talk with this particular matter. So these are just some of the things that has to be addressed and are being addressed right now. And yeah, this is actually being discussed at the moment. And yeah, we should look all into more on this. Actually, the government should be looking more onto this. And Mr. Shapps went on to say that there was a fairness issue because younger people did not and had not yet the opportunity to have their second jab. And he also defended the green watch list as a maximal transparency approach. But even for countries on the regular green list, he said there was no guarantee their status would not change at short notice. So this is also very important. We have to consider this particular fact. And yeah, it is of regards because there has been a lot of these cases. And when it comes down, especially to the Delta variant, yeah, that has been a rising concern, and that has been, a big problem right now. And with that situation, they're saying even if you're on the green list, well, you better make sure that, you're not 100%, you don't think that you're safe as well, because what's going to happen is your status could change anytime, any day. So yeah, you better watch out. And these destination added recently to the green list from Wednesday onwards on the 30th of June actually will be the countries that is in Europe, the Balearic Islands, which includes Ibiza, Minorca, Majorca, and Formentera, Malta, and Madeira. So these are just some of the countries in the European country in Europe. And in the Caribbean, well, Anguilla, Antigua, Bardua, Barbados, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, Turks, and the Caicos Islands as well. So these are just some of the countries that you can go to when you are, if you want to travel to the Caribbean. Well, this is how you can go. I mean, these countries are now on the green list. So other British overseas territories, including Bermuda, the British Antarctic Territory, and the British Indian Ocean Territory, and Pitcairn as well. So these are just, some of the places that you can travel to. These are the countries that will be on the green list. So 6 destinations will also be added to the government's red list on the 30th of June, and they are going to be the Dominican Republic, Eritrea, Haiti, and Mongolia, Tunisia, and Uganda. So yeah, these are just some of the countries that will be falling onto the red list on the 30th of June. So these are just, some. I mean, for me, my personal opinion, you're saying on the 30th of June, these countries will have even more cases. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to make sure that we keep them on the red list. I mean, that's just absurd in my opinion. So all these additions to the green list, with the exception of Malta, have been added to the green list watch list. So signaling they are at risk of moving back to amber. So Israel and Jerusalem have also been put on the watch list, the government has said. So these are just places that they are saying that although they are green at the moment, there could be a possibility that they would end up in the amber zone. So the Department for Transport said the plan to fully allow vaccinated people to arrive from amber list countries without having to quarantine will take place in phases, starting with UK residents. So with UK residents are going to be the people who will start this, and they will be the ones to begin all of this. So yeah, these are just, with that regards, is being discussed as well. So looking at all these things, it is very concerning. And also, they are planning to remove the guidance that people should not travel to these amber countries, and will take clinical advice on whether regular testing could provide a safe alternative to quarantine for children accompanied by vaccinated adults. However, a spokesperson said further details, such as when these changes might happen, will not be set out until next month. So until next month, this is not something that will be addressed. I mean, they're just talking about all these things, and they're saying, XYZ, this is what we're going to do. How we're going to do it. And yeah, this is also being, with regards to this, all of these things, it's being regarded right now. I mean, we can only hope and expect for the best, with that particular regard. And yeah, talking about all these things and a whole lot more right here on Relax Radio. And looking also at the things right now, like since we are talking about whole traffic light systems for arrivals, in case you guys still don't remember what the rules are and what the measures are. Well, if you are the measures are just a couple of these. So the first measure is the passenger locator form. So whether you're from a green list country or amber list country or a red list country, well, it doesn't matter. You will have to fill these forms, and you will have to also fill a pre-departure test at destination form. So these are just the two forms that all countries, whether you're from the green list or from the amber list or from the red list, well, you will have to fill these forms. That is the passenger locator form and the pre-departure test at destination. And the other one is looking at all. If you're from a red list country, well, you will have to hotel quarantine for 10 days at least. And if you're from an amber list country, well, you will have to isolate, and you will have to self-isolate for 10 days. And it's not applicable, though, for people who are in the red list countries. And yeah, these are just, some of the things. And test to release. Well, on day 5, you will have to give your test to release. So this is on the day 5 for people in the amber list. It's not applicable for people in green list countries, and in the red list countries, it's a no-no, because anyway, you are coming from these countries. So there's still a risk of you carrying the virus over and into into the country. So that's something that we want to avoid as much as as much as possible. And the PCR testing also that will be included is on or day before the day 2 after your return to the UK. So it's either on that day or day 2 after your return to the UK. Everyone, it doesn't matter what, it's applicable for all the 3 countries. So whether you're from a green list country or from a red list country or even from an amber list country, it doesn't really matter. And you will have to do further testing if you're from an amber list or a red list country. So this is not applicable for people who in the green list countries, this further PCR testings. So, Chief Executive Steve Heapy of the airline Jet2 said the traffic light system still did not set out the criteria for placing countries in these different lists. So Labor also called for the government, the Labor has also called and discussed with the government to publish the criteria by which it was assessing each of these countries, and said the amber list was a concern because right now what they want more than anything is transparency. How do you make the decision and say, okay, these countries are going to be in the amber list, this country is going to be moved and escalated to the red list, this country is going to go down to the green list? So how do you make these decisions? A lot of these travel agencies and travel companies and tour operators, everyone, the whole travel industry wants to know how the government makes their decisions. So Mr. Schaap said the Joint Biosecurity Center, which advises the government on which countries to open up to travel, publishes data behind its decisions, including the case rates, the vaccination levels, and the amount of sequencing of these variants, and the quality of data from a country. So these are some of the criteria that they require to observe a particular country. Whether you're from a red list, these are the criteria that they decide where a country falls, whether it's a red list or a green list or even an amber list. So these are just the things that Mr. Schaap wanted to clear out on. And looking at all this, the prospect of European holidays though right now is, it does face, however, another hurdle. There's another problem in that regards. So after German Chancellor Angela Merkel suggested earlier this week that all EU countries should make British travelers quarantine on arrival to slow down the spread of the Delta variant. So even if you go to these countries, well, there is the possibility that you will require to have quarantine. So it doesn't like the UK government said, even if these countries are in the green list in our country, well, when it comes to their countries, the policies could be different. The rules could be different because of the legislation that they are following. So even if you don't have a quarantine here in the UK, and technically you're not supposed to over there, but in their country, you will have to follow their rules and their regulations. So currently, people traveling from UK to Greece and Spain and Portugal are not required to quarantine when they get there. But those going to Italy will have to self-quarantine for 5 days, then take a test, while fully vaccinated UK visitors to France can enter without quarantining. So right now, the case numbers are continuing to rise in the UK, with a further 16,703 reported on Thursday. And that was also another 21 deaths that was also reported. So more than 60% of UK adults now have been fully vaccinated, while 82% have had at least one dose of the vaccine. So that's good news right there. There's a little good news right there. There has been a rise in cases. And looking at the numbers, though, comparing the UK's numbers, the UK has one of the best numbers across the globe. So yeah, with that regards and that consideration, definitely we are, when it comes to vaccinating our population, our community, we are leagues above most of the other countries. And it's just a little pat on the back for the people in the UK. So looking at the cases right now, the total vaccination doses per 100 people, 113 people, that is in the UK. Right now in the UK, this is 113 people. The only thing that is beating us is Malta with 144 total vaccinations doses per 100 people. So right now, all the other countries are still trying to catch up. But with that regards, I hope like the vaccine does spread across to a lot of these other countries, and they get to fully roll out their vaccine and their doses and get their population in check as well. But hey, with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, but we will definitely be right back after this and taking a look at your time. It is 3:29. Good afternoon.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. You know, the way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no, if that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset. You know, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
You know, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. For me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you know, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. You know, when it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, you know, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. You know, for the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? But when you are basically going out and during a day, you know, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. You buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, you know, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if that, you know, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, you know, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? and the company may still have value. It may still be doing quite a good things.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. This is me, Nick, keeping you guys company and entertained all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that is going on in the UK. And there has been a lot of discussions and talk about, a lot of these things that is going on. And like I said, the green list has been recently updated. So there is plans. If you're having plans to travel to these countries, well, you can go, you can travel, but make sure that you watch out because there is the possibility that you actually might these countries might actually be put into the amber list. There's still a risk. They're still being watched over at the moment, but for now, though, they are on the green list. So if you want to travel to these countries, you won't be even required to quarantine. So that's a good point right there. If you are planning to travel, I recommend that you don't. Right now, although the cases look like it's not going to get any better anytime soon. So make sure you guys stay into the countries. Try to keep it local as much as possible. If you can keep it local, well, that would be a great thing. And looking at all that regards the situation in Wales, well, there are online vaccine passes available for urgent travel. Since we're talking about all travel things, well, Wales said right now they have made this available. The digital passports are finally going to be here. I feel like this is something that is going to happen right now. Well, people from Wales going abroad for urgent travel can now access their COVID-19 vaccination status online. The Welsh government has said this. So paper vaccine certificates have been available since May. So with the documents posted to those who needed to urgently travel internationally. So if you have a reason, if you are going for a very important reason, well, you can go to these countries. You can actually get these pass from the government, the Welsh government. If you are from Wales, well, you can travel internationally. It should be urgent. There should be a valid reason. So the Ewan Morgan, the health minister, said people should only travel abroad if it is essential. So if it's essential, it's important, well, you are allowed to travel abroad then. But more than half of the Wales population are now fully vaccinated. So that's more than half. That is more than 50% of our population has already gotten their vaccine dose. That's great news right there. I'm something to be proud of. I would be really proud of this. The achievement that we have come through and we've, taken together to see that, a lot of people have finally gotten forward and moved forward and pushed forward to get their vaccine. So the Welsh government has advised a lot of people actually to register to download the digital pass at least 2 weeks before they're due to travel abroad. So before 2 weeks of your travel, well, you better make sure that you get these passes because then only you can travel to these countries unless it's for an urgent reason, of course, and as well as to check entry requirements for the destination country and follow the travel rules. So Baroness Morgan said she was pleased that people in Wales can now access their vaccination status via the NHS COVID pass if they need to travel urgently and have completed their vaccine course. So if you've taken both doses of the vaccine, well, that's something of good news. Well, you can always go and travel to these countries. And she went on to say that it's important to remember that the Welsh government advice on travel hasn't changed and that people can only consider international travel if it is absolutely essential. So it's unless, of course, it is very important that you have to be there, well, you won't be able to get these passes. Otherwise, you can. So work is ongoing to allow people in Wales to use England's NHS app to show proof of their vaccination status as has been possible over the border since May. So on Wednesday, the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, said that the Senate, 10,000 people have already received vaccine certificates in Wales. So in Wales, this is something that they're doing right now. They're making sure to push this as soon as practical. So it's just great news that they are doing, and there's been a lot of this repeated requests and spoken to people have been asking the government to finally implement this, and they finally done it. Next thing you know, right now it's great news. These are great news that you can use these passes rather to travel abroad if you want to go internationally. Well, there is the only criteria that will be required to travel to these countries will be that you have a valid reason. It is very essential that you travel to these countries to do something, whatever it could be, work related, but more than that, it could be even a very urgent situation where you don't even know what it is. It can be anything at all. So make sure that if you do travel to these countries, it should be for the essential reasons. So yeah, looking at all these things, like I said, we've been talking and discussing about all these matters, and talks right now about how the situation has been changing and how the number of cases, it's been worrying though that the number of cases has been rising. So looking at things like, for example, in Scotland, then there has been a high number of cases, and yeah, right now it's been worrying. I mean, a lot of people have been worried about it. Nicola Sturgeon also spoke about all these things, and they have been discussing this, and they have been worried about these particular matters and how the cases have been constantly on the rise. So vaccination is offering Scotland the route out of the pandemic, according to Nicola Sturgeon. So Nicola Sturgeon says that the route out of this of the pandemic, well, it could be with vaccination. So the First Minister has told MSPs this week that the link between new cases and serious health harms caused by the virus hasn't gone away, but it is weakening significantly. So it's not really gone away, but it's not really broken the link, but rather it has reduced the amount of cases in the country. So that's a valid point right there. That's a valid thing that we can actually be proud of, and be happy that the fact that the number of cases in the country has reduced significantly, even though it's not gone completely. It's still there, but then we got to remember that the virus is not 100% cure. But we are breaking the link, and if we do get there, hopefully we can reach herd immunity as soon as practical. And Scotland recorded 2,999 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday. That is a record high for Scotland. So what do these recent figures show about us and about this link, and what does this mean that we no longer have to worry about the case number? So what's happening to the infection rates in Scotland right now? So the cases are rising really, really fast. So the cases are crazy, and there's no signs that the rate of infections is slowing down anytime soon. So Scotland has been enjoying a sustained decline in the number of new COVID cases, but that has all changed back in the 5th of May. Since then, the number of new COVID cases per day has mainly been rising and at an increasing rate and pace in recent days. So on 5th of May, the number of these cases detected over the previous 7 days was 1,046. So by the June 23rd, this figures has gone up to 11,067. That is a 10-fold increase. So from 1,000, it went up to 11,000. That's how many cases the figures are jumping. If you guys don't understand that in a graph, well, I can tell you it is not a good sign. It's not a good picture. But yeah, that's pretty high amounts of cases. So Scotland has the highest rate amongst, when it comes to the UK, it has the highest rate of infections right now, reaching almost 203 cases per 100,000 people back in Wednesday. So yeah, the sharp rise is being driven by the more infectious Delta variant. So they're saying right now, this is all being helmed by the Delta variant. So the most common and most predominant strain and the most predominant variant right now, the strain of the virus, is the Delta variant, which was initially identified back in India, which accounts for 90% of new cases in the UK, according to the UK government. However, the Scottish government has been talking about this, and they say fewer people are being treated in hospitals for COVID illness now, and fewer people are dying despite this increase. So are people still getting sick from the COVID? Well, in short, they do. They are, and they are. I mean, look, we got to understand, they are still getting it. They're still infected. If there's a rise in cases, well, there's going to be people who will be sick. And yeah, but according to the government's analysis, about only 5% of people who are infected end up in hospitals, rather than 10% we are seeing before vaccination started to offer us protection. So people are also staying in the hospital for shorter periods after being admitted. So the easiest way to see this is in a graph which shows, the links of all these new cases, the number of people infected of, being, when you look at the rise, when it comes to the rise of the number of patients, it's been in a steady increase. But then the cases on average per 7-day average, that has been an increase right there. That has been a lot. So it's just crazy, with the number of cases in the country. It's worrying. I mean, the people have been worried about this. The ministers have been talking about this, and there has been discussion about this. And Linda Bald, the professor of public health at the University of Edinburgh, said that she was expecting the numbers of death to also go up. So she is expecting that these numbers will increase. So in the past 7 days, up to 6th of September, just 2 death certificates mentioned COVID-19, the lowest figure in any week since the pandemic began in Scotland. So after that, weekly deaths began to rise with a record 76 recorded in 7 days up to 18th of October. So last week, there were 13 death certificates mentioning COVID-19, according to the National Records of Scotland. So 3 weeks after this springs a low of 4 deaths in the middle of May. So, there's just a lot of numbers of people passing away actually right now. It might not look a lot, it might not feel a lot, but then it's still a big number if you consider this. So the First Minister's statement to Hollywood on Tuesday, Ms. Sturgeon announced a revised strategic framework for tackling COVID, which took into account the protection being offered by the vaccine after COVID sickness. She said that previously the Scottish government was intent on suppressing the virus to the lowest possible level, but this had been replaced with an aim of suppressing the virus to a level consistent with alleviating its harms. So this essentially means that the higher number of cases will be tolerated than in the past wave of the pandemic. So these are just, things that is being discussed and being talked about and is being, being looked into. I hope that the number of cases will not rise. And do we have to really worry about this, about the number of cases and rising in the country is what we want to know. Well, find out about that and a whole lot more. We will be right back after that with a quick break. Taking a look at your time, it is 3:45. Good evening.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports, and if I had a bad game, for example, he'd say to me, you had one to forget.
That's it. Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you got to start and say, well, what do I want my net worth to be, so that there's a goal, and then work backwards. How do I get there? And if I can start with £50 or $50 a week, if I save that every week, and you can go online and use calculators online. I don't have to teach you the maths behind it, but you can say, okay, and if I get a 3% return and I put this away for how long will it take to reach my goal? And that's called just this basic cash flow projection calculations. And it's what we use in financial planning all the time. What we say to clients is we say, okay, what is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to go to? And we discuss that in a lot of detail and over most of the meeting. And then the rest of it is saying, okay, in your exact circumstances, with your risk profile, with how you feel about investments and pensions and taxes and where you are and who you work with, and your education level or your lack of education or how involved you want to be. There's a lot of variables that we take into account, and then we say, okay, here's a plan. You start like this, that's great. And then we review it all the time. And we say, okay, we need to increase it, we're on track, we're not, this is what is happening. Because remember, when you're dealing with assets, the valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's a struggle. Yeah. So there are strategies everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million, and they're different, right? They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country, to be fair. Different countries have different tax laws, so different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end, I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies, and then you step up into different things.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. That's very important, right? Because you want cars,
very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that will improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Hold up. If you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me, baby, one more time.
More variety than you can imagine. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. That's right. This is me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. If you guys are wondering, why am I all of a sudden my trusty jacket? Well, it is pretty cold right here. It is freezing, but I got good news for you guys. It is a Friday. So yeah, it is the end of the week. And yeah, it's been a really long week, but hey, if you guys can always tell me what you think about of the weekend and what your plans are. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852 473 473. That's right. You can always feel free to hit me up and let me know. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day and every day. So yeah, that being said, though, we're talking about all things going on right now in the UK. And we were discussing about, how Scotland, there has been worrying about the numbers of cases. So First Minister Nicola Sturgeon made a statement actually to Holyrood on Tuesday. And Ms. Sturgeon went on to announce a revised strategic framework for tackling COVID, which took into account the protection being offered by vaccination against COVID sickness. She said that previously the Scottish government was intent on suppressing the virus to the lowest possible level. But this had been replaced with an aim of suppressing the virus to a low level consistent with alleviating its harms. So yeah, these are just, some of the things that they have started. And this essentially means that the higher number of cases will be tolerated than in the past waves of the pandemic. So the Scottish government's new strategy reflects the latest guidelines from the World Health Organization on public health and social distancing measures to tackle COVID. So in this document, the WHO says the focus on shift from cases numbers to hospital admissions and intensive care rates in countries where the most vulnerable are fully vaccinated, a position Scotland will be in by next week, according to the First Minister. So they're talking about all these things, but there is a balance to be struck right here, and there is, something to be spoken about. And if the case rates are allowed to get completely out of control, and if they do get out of control, if they do rise to that particular point, the point of no return, well, then pressure will inevitably increase on the NHS, and that will more people will die. That's what's happening, and this is what Professor Bald has went on to say about. And she did speak about these things, and it's just worrying. The number of cases, like I said, is pretty worrying in the UK. If it keeps going up like this, and if we don't control the rates, well, there can be more problems, and the NHS will be struck with more overburdening, and they will be strained again. And that's something that we want to avoid at all costs. And they went on to say, that if we really see these numbers continue to increase, it's going to translate into some hospital admissions and people becoming very, very unwell. And so, we've got to hold the course for a few more weeks and try and send the behavioral message that this is not a free for all, and we all need to do our bit. So winter restrictions right now, a high case rate also increases the risk of new variants of concern emerging. So ones that are more infectious, more deadly, or which are more resistant to current vaccines. So the WHO document says that some form of COVID restrictions, for example, isolating after a positive test, will need to be used for the foreseeable future. So these are things that they want to implement and they want to use in the coming. Hopefully, these are things that they will implement and adopt in the coming of days. These are just something that we can expect the government to do, but hopefully they will play their part, and they will definitely make sure that these are implemented. But hey, with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. And taking a look at your time right now, it is 4 o'clock on the dot.